Welcome back to American Dialectic. We have an interesting topic for you today. This involves a shooting at Eugene Cascade Middle School. Two officers, Steve Tin and Officer Aaron Johns, involved, and a gentleman named Charles Frederick Landeros. Essentially, Mr. Landeros was there to pick up his daughter. He was involved in a custody dispute with his wife. She had said something that he's not allowed to pick up the kid. Nobody really knows what the situation is there at this moment.
He went ahead to try to pick her up.
Right. He tried to pick her up. The two school resource officers, that's Officer Timms and Officer Johns, responded. The principal asked them to remove him from the school. It's not their problem. Custody disputes is not something they deal with. So the two officers attempted to do so. Mr. Landeros became agitated. He didn't want to leave. He was arguing with the police officers. Eventually, they started to corral him toward the door. And let's actually. This is a good point. Let's go to the footage right here. I'll show you. Here you go.
This was my husband. Listen to me. You're gonna end up. Go! You're under arrest. Let go. You are under arrest. Let go of me. You are under arrest. Let go of me. Code 3 first. Get out of here.
That was something.
It's hard to watch. It's just hard to watch.
I've never seen
like
so
that.
much stupid.
Yeah. Why? So as you can see from the video, the officers are pushing him toward the door, and he draws a gun out from a hip location, whether it was in his pants or in a holster. I'm not sure at this moment. Pulls it out and aims it at Officer Timms. And if you stop the video,
Not once.
Twice. If you stop the video, you can see it twice. Him re-aiming and readjusting to try to fire at Officer Timms.
Second time after he fell.
Yeah, after he fell. As I said, I'm generally for people not killing each other, especially when it comes to positions of authority like police officers. I think we should be extra critical on police officers because we're empowering them to take life in certain instances. But this is about as clear cut as it gets.
I've never seen something so clear in saying the cops were in the right. One of the first things, you must obey a lawful order. If you refuse to comply, they're allowed to escalate. And when they choose to escalate, their only objective is to get you to comply. Right. So he already broke the first crime, but he kept refusing.
Right.
Then he escalated, attempted assault and murder.
Yeah, start with the first one. Public or private property. The administrator or the owner asks you to leave. The cops are obliged to have you leave, no matter what the situation.
They don't want to be there as much as you do.
It's not their situation. They don't know about the legal ramifications. All they know, public or private property, you've been asked to leave, you must leave. Second thing, you cannot, as a father who has kids in school, you cannot bring a firearm to any school, period. Unless you are a police officer or an FBI agent, you cannot bring a firearm. It's an offense of itself, depending on your state. You can end up in prison just for having it. For having it. Not even brandishing it, not even pulling it, just having it, and it shows off your hip and somebody calls the police, you can end up in prison depending on your state. So they are gun-free zones. Number 3, this man drew that weapon during an altercation with cops.
Oh, God.
That's bad enough. Some states, that's a justified shoot right there. Just the fact that he has a gun. And I've seen videos, we won't go into too much detail about that are somewhat horrifying to me, of cops shooting for less than just having a gun. So that's number 3. Number 4, he finger on the trigger, and it was aimed at him. And this man, we haven't mentioned this until now, but he is a firearms instructor. There's certain rules when it comes to firearms. Pulled it, aimed it, put his finger on the trigger. Officer Timms, totally justified at this moment to think his life's in danger. Now let's go the next step. He fired off 2 rounds. You can clearly hear 2 bangs before Officer Timms circles around, and you can see the 9mm shell casing in the thing. Middle school, full of children, fired off 2 rounds. That's
what the hell?
Yeah. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? Any one of those strays? You can see in the video. There's a woman walking up behind him. He could have hit and killed anybody. Ricochets, anything could have happened.
Gone through the door, hit a child.
Yeah, he put everybody's life in danger at that moment.
All because he did not want to listen to a cop.
Yeah, because he didn't want to leave. He
could have just left.
I understand. Now, there's a part of me that understands something with this man. His child is there, and he's being told he can't go to the place where his child is. And I can understand that. Again, as a father, I'd move heaven and hell for my kid. I would.
Mm-hmm.
But in this situation, he has to understand there's legal ramifications for what's going on between him and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
These are police officers, and they're asking you to leave. Now, nobody's going to hurt your child while you're gone. Chances are your ex-wife is coming to pick her up, and she'll be just fine and safe. So there's no threat to your child. Really, if you look at it introspectively, it's a selfish emotion. You want to be with your child. Perhaps your child wants to be with you too. Yeah, and understandable. But in this moment, it's the wrong it's the wrong instinct.
And I mean, I can only imagine how the ex-wife is feeling right now. I mean, how do you go ahead and explain to your own child, so daddy went full stupid and he got himself shot? It makes the custody case clean, but
now this is, we're getting into the real victims of this story here, is that young child who now does not have a father because of his choice. So when I say his choices were selfish, in many ways they were selfish. He robbed that child of a father, or he or she
a lifetime with
a lifetime,
father.
Right. Yeah, it was a female.
He did not need to do that.
No, there was all he had to do was comply. He was going to court for custody. And even if just look at it from a straight out custody case, her being able to go to court and say he even fought officers at the elementary school. Let's say this didn't end in a fatality. He would have lost the case because of just that. You don't ever argue with police officers, guys. If you don't know this by now, don't argue with police officers. I don't care if you think they're wrong. I don't care what they're asking you to do. You don't argue with them.
Go file a complaint with their department.
Yeah, absolutely. You have alternative means of going about it. You know what I mean? You can
there's things out there so that you can
get a lawyer, talk to the police sergeant. There's tons of things you can do if you have a problem. But you just got to obey police officers. They're not there on their orders. You got to remember that. Officers are not just like using their own discretion. They have very specific things that they have to do. If they're traffic cops, they'll pull you over for speeding. That's what they're watching for, or driving without a license, or whatever. What happens?
They want to get out of that situation as much as you. They're not allowed to fall back.
Right.
That's the difference.
You cannot retreat as a police officer, and there's a good reason for that.
In some cases, you can retreat, but in cases like this, there's no reason for them to have presumed that they should have.
Right. For everybody's safety, that man needed to be escorted out. He was escalating. He was armed. They may not have known he was armed at the time.
If he actually just complied, he probably wouldn't have needed an escort.
Right.
But he refused. That's the escort.
Yeah. All it would have taken was, hey, listen, you can't pick her up today. Reason X, Y, and Z.
We get it. Sucks.
Yeah, I understand it sucks, but you can't do it today. And that's the end of this story. And that's where and we wouldn't be talking about it now if that's how it had gone. So really, and again, don't bring a gun to a school, period. I don't care who you are, unless you're an FBI agent or police officer. It's not how you handle things.
Agreed.
So this one really, nobody wins in this. You want to talk about the victims? Both of those police officers are now victims. Having to hold a man while another man shoots him, and then also having to be the man that shoots him. These are school resource officers, 45, 50 years old. You know what I mean? They're not in it for the action. They're not young men.
And they're going to be seeing the daughter inside the school for the rest of her time there.
Oh, yeah.
So, imagine being that child, looking at the men who
killed your dad.
And they had every single right to do so.
Right.
And still, I wouldn't blame her for being angry at them.
No, I get it. The whole situation's bad. But you can't, I don't believe you can put this on the resource officers. I believe they acted justly to defend themselves. As sad as everything is, the lesson that you got to learn here is obey the law. We're a country of laws. Know what you're doing at all times, and don't pull guns on police officers.
Don't pull guns on people.
Yeah, unless your life is directly threatened. Don't be the person that starts it. Don't be the instigator.
You don't know who else is armed and their willingness to defend themselves. Because at the end of the day, they want to get it home to their family as much as you do,
right?
If not more so.
Right. So, it's a sad story. Not much else to say on this one. There was one follow-up, a police station in that town. Well, there was a protest against the police officers for the shoot, which there was a counter-protest that showed up immediately. And it's a very justified kill, so I imagine these are friends of his, and I don't blame
friends,
them.
Family,
that kind of thing.
It sucks.
And then
he was part of the community.
Yeah, and then a week later or so, there was a bomb that was found at the police headquarters.
Don't do that.
Yeah, we don't know that it's related. Just in all fairness, but small towns and 2 major instances inside of a few weeks, or a month, say, it's you got to investigate it as at least connected, So, yeah, we'll have to do a follow up on this next week, see if there's any more.
Yeah, I think that would be more than fair and reasonable.
Yeah, great. Hey, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Jake and Joe.
Jake and Joe. We'll have another video up soon. Later.
Peace.